I see you. You're a woman who feels like she's at a crossroads, but instead of moving forward, you're stuck. You're a high-achieving, intelligent woman who has spent years following the rules of society. And now in midlife, you're grappling with internal and external changes that you don't quite know how to navigate. You're middle-aged, and instead of feeling empowered by all the wisdom and experience you've gained, you feel disconnected, uncertain, and maybe even invisible. You've spent so much time meeting the needs of others, your family, your partner, your job, that somewhere along the way, you stop listening to yourself. Maybe you keep waiting for the weight to come off, waiting for the perfect moment to pursue that dream, waiting for more confidence, more money, more clarity, more time. But here's the truth. You don't need to wait for anything. You already have what you need inside you. It's just been buried under years of self-doubt, perfectionism, and external validation. The solution isn't another self-improvement project or another course that tells you how to fix yourself. The solution is reconnecting with your intuition, your self-trust, and the deep, unwavering confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you want out of life. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's episode of How to Lose the Weight. Welcome to How to Lose the Weight, the podcast for women ready to stop waiting for someday and live life now. I'm your host, Holly Toscanini, and I'm here to help you break free from perfectionism, self-doubt, and the someday mindset. Together, we'll dive into real conversations about self-trust, empowerment, and living authentically. If you're ready to reconnect with your intuition and step into your power, you're in the right place. Let's lose the weight and start living fully right now. Welcome back to How to Lose the Weight, the podcast where we talk about shedding the weight of self-doubt, unrealistic expectations, and societal pressures so you can step fully into your power. I'm your host, Holly Toscanini. Now, my hope for you is that by the end of this episode, you'll have a clear understanding of why midlife can feel like a standstill for so many women, how society's expectations have shaped our disconnection from intuition, the role self-doubt plays in keeping us stuck, and some practical ways to rebuild self-trust and reclaim your power. And I have a free resource for you, my ebook, Activate Your Intuition, 3 Steps to Reclaiming Inner Wisdom. You'll find the link in the show notes, so be sure to grab it after this episode. Midlife is often portrayed as a crisis, something to be managed, survived, or even feared. But what if we reframe it? What if, instead of seeing midlife as the beginning of decline, we saw it as an invitation to transformation? I want to talk about what's really happening in midlife. I want to help you take a deeper look at the physical, emotional, and even the psychological shifts we face during this time. See, midlife is often reduced to a bunch of cliches, a second act, the prime of your life, or even a midlife crisis. But in reality, it's an intricate and deeply transformative period, both full of challenges and opportunities. And for many women, midlife isn't just a milestone. It becomes a profound shift that affects every aspect of their lives, from their physical bodies to their sense of self, their relationships, careers, and their emotional well-being. Understanding what's really happening in midlife requires more than just a surface-level discussion. It's about peeling back the layers of biological changes, life transitions, societal pressures, and the deep emotional reckonings that can make this phase feel both disorienting but also awakening. So let's take a second and just break down each of these particular changes in a little greater depth and detail. Let's start with the biological changes of midlife, and let's talk about navigating these kind of unpredictable this terrain of menopause. See, the body that once seemed predictable might now feel foreign, and hormonal shifts during menopause and perimenopause create a cascade of symptoms that affect everything from mood to cognition to our physical vitality. there's the hormonal fluctuations and emotional ups and downs. See, estrogen and progesterone, the hormones that once dictated the rhythms of our menstrual cycles, begin to fluctuate unpredictably before they eventually decline. And these shifts can create mood swings that feel overwhelming. One moment you're fine, the next minute you're overcome with irritation or sadness. And women often report feeling out of control, as if their emotions are no longer their own. Then there's the brain fog and the cognitive shifts. One of the most unsettling aspects of midlife for a lot of us is the onset of brain fog, forgetting words, losing focus, and struggling to complete tasks that once felt easy. This isn't just being forgetful. It's a neurobiological shift caused by hormonal changes that affect neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. And for many of us, we often worry that we're developing early dementia, especially when in reality, it's not that complicated. Our brain is simply adapting to these new hormone levels, and it takes some practice. And then there are the sleep disruptions and the constant feeling of being tired or chronic fatigue. Sleep disturbances are another hallmark of midlife, with so many of us experiencing things like insomnia, night sweats, or just restless sleep in general. When we don't sleep well, everything suffers. Our mood, our cognitive abilities, our immune system, and our ability to cope with stress. A woman who once could thrive on 5 or 6 hours of sleep now finds herself utterly depleted after a restless night. And then there are the physical changes and, let's face it, some body image challenges. There's the weight gain and redistribution of fat, especially around our waist, maybe thinning hair, dry skin, or even breakouts. These can all feel like an attack on our sense of self. And the body that once felt strong and vibrant and predictable now feels alien. And many women panic, feeling like they've let themselves go, or that they have got to fight against aging with every single tool available, whether it's extreme dieting, surgery, expensive cosmetic products, or punishing exercise routines. What this really means is that those of us in midlife, we're not losing control of our bodies. We're undergoing a profound biological transformation. Understanding these shifts not as problems to be solved, but as phases to be navigated with self-compassion, can help women approach this stage with a sense of empowerment rather than defeat. See, this stage in our lives is really the perfect time to let go of old identities and embrace some new possibilities. See, beyond the physical changes, midlife is often marked by major life shifts that force women to redefine their identity. It's not just about hormonal fluctuations. It's about who you are when everything around you changes. There's the empty nest and shifting family roles. For women who have children, the empty nest can bring both relief and grief. For years, life revolved around schedules and responsibilities and caretaking and being a mom. And when children leave home, many women find themselves asking, who am I without this role of motherhood? And there's often a loss of purpose, a sense of disconnection, and the painful realization that life is moving forward with or without them. Or maybe you're navigating divorce, relationship shifts, or rediscovering intimacy. Divorce rates spike in midlife as many women reevaluate relationships that no longer serve them. Some leave long-term marriages in search of personal fulfillment, and others find themselves unexpectedly single after a partner's decision to leave. The world of dating in midlife can feel both liberating and terrifying. Relearning intimacy, setting new boundaries, and facing society's bias around a woman's desirability after 40 or 50 are all challenging. And then there's the caregiver stagnation, job transitions, and the fear of reinvention. Those of us in midlife often face career stagnation, and promotions are going to be less frequent, and younger colleagues may be favored, and some women start to feel like they're fading into the background. Others may wake up and realize they no longer love what they do, but fear they're too old to change careers or to start over. And the bottom line is that midlife transitions require a letting go of old identities and an embracing of new possibilities. The challenge is not seeing change as a loss, but as evolution. Women who can successfully navigate these midlife transitions are those who actively shape what comes next, rather than staying stuck in what once was. And let's not forget the weight of societal expectations in a world that just worships youth. See, even as we face these deep internal changes, those of us in midlife must also contend with a culture that tells us our best years are behind us. A lot of us feel unseen in midlife because society values youth, and as women age, we find we receive less attention, not just in dating or beauty industries, but in workplaces, social spaces, and media representation. And there's the pressure to stay young no matter what. The anti-aging industry is a billion-dollar empire that thrives on convincing women that they're not enough. There's some things like Botox and filler and plastic surgery, but there's also biohacking and extreme fitness programs. I mean, women are constantly being sold the idea that their aging body is a problem that must be fixed at any cost. And there's success and the myth of having it all. Women are expected to balance career and family and fitness and beauty and financial independence, and personal fulfillment. And we're often made to feel guilty when we fall short in any one area. And the truth is that society profits off our insecurities. We've learned to reject unrealistic expectations at this point, I hope, and it's all about redefining success on our own terms. This is the most powerful act of midlife liberation. That idea that you can reject unrealistic expectations and you can redefine success and what it means for you. At some point, many of us hit this existential wall, and we start asking ourselves, is this all there is? Have I been living for myself or for others? And what do I really want for the rest of my life? This is not a crisis. It's an awakening. It's the realization that time is finite and that people-pleasing has left us exhausted. We deserve more than what we've been settling for. It's time to let go of our good girl conditioning. Many of us realize that our entire lives have been built around keeping other people comfortable. And midlife is the time to break free from the conditioning that taught us to be quiet, accommodating, and self-sacrificing. You see, this is really an opportunity to reconnect with our passion, our purpose, and even our pleasure. What if growing older wasn't about losing vitality, but about rediscovering joy, adventure, and desire? Many women began exploring their passions, whether it's starting a business, writing a book, or traveling, or prioritizing pleasure and intimacy in new ways. The point I want to drive home for you is that the emotional awakening of midlife is a chance to reclaim your personal power. It's not about finding yourself. It's about coming back home to the woman you have always been beneath the layers of limiting beliefs and unrealistic expectations. See, this time in our life isn't about loss. It's a time of shedding, redefining, and stepping into the fullest version of ourselves. It's a time to trust our intuition, embrace self-trust in general, and create a life that aligns with our deepest values. My friend, this is not an ending. This is a beginning. So why do you think we lose connection with our intuition as we get older? Let's unravel some of the layers of our conditioning and reclaim our inner wisdom. See, women, we're naturally intuitive. It's not just a cliche, it's a biological reality. Studies in neuroscience have shown that women have heightened activity in the parts of their brain responsible for things like empathy, emotional regulation, and gut instinct. Now, this means that women are wired to pick up on nonverbal cues and sense emotional undercurrents and make powerful instinctual decisions. Yet, despite this innate ability, many women lose connection with their intuition over time. And by midlife, many of us find ourselves doubting our own judgment, overanalyzing every decision, and maybe even feeling completely disconnected from our inner knowing. How does this happen? Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process of conditioning where society, family expectations, and cultural narratives teach women that listening to themselves is dangerous, wrong, or even selfish. So let's break down exactly how this happens, and more importantly, how we can reclaim the intuitive power that's really always been ours. See, from the moment we enter this world, girls are socialized differently than boys. And while boys are often encouraged to be bold and assertive and confident in their decisions, women are subtly and sometimes overtly conditioned to prioritize harmony, to be accommodating, and second-guess ourselves. And some of the messages we hear growing up are things like, be a good girl, which really translates to don't make waves, don't upset others, and don't challenge authority. Because from an early age, many girls are rewarded for being quiet, obedient, and well-behaved. They're praised for fitting in and for not questioning legality, right? Don't question what you're told. And as a result, women learn that their opinions, their instincts, and those gut feelings have got to be filtered through the lens of approval from others. Next, you hear, don't be selfish, which really means your needs should always come second or last. Many women are raised to prioritize other people's happiness over their own. And expressing a personal desire, whether it's wanting some alone time, wanting to pursue a career dream, or setting a boundary, it's often met with guilt or shame. And over time, this leads women to ignore their own inner signals in favor of pleasing everybody else. And then there's, are you sure you want to do that? Which really roughly translates to, you can't trust yourself, someone else knows better. See, women are often taught to doubt their own decisions and to defer to authority figures, whether they be parents or teachers or partners or bosses. This breeds a lifelong habit of seeking external validation instead of trusting your inner knowing. So by adulthood, many women don't even recognize their intuition as a source of wisdom anymore. So by the time we're grown up, we've been trained to question ourselves at every single turn. We've learned that listening to our own voice is risky, and making others feel comfortable is more important than following our truth. See, when you've spent decades filtering your own decisions through the expectations of others, a few things start to happen. You start to experience this impact of the constant second guessing, and it gives ourselves, well, it happens that we end up feeling like we lose ourselves. So all that filtering really just means you don't know who you are, you don't know who to trust. And that fear of judgment can become paralyzing. See, instead of being taught to make decisions based on our personal intuition, many women find themselves trapped in a loop of wondering, oh my God, what is everybody else going to think? Whether it's changing careers, whether it's leaving a relationship, or even wearing a bold outfit, there's this lingering fear of, what will people say? Will I be judged? Or will I be rejected? I gotta fit in, right? And then analysis paralysis sets in, because when you've been conditioned to doubt yourself, every single decision becomes an exhausting mental battle. You might go back and forth over a choice for days or weeks or even years, always waiting for certainty that never seems to come. See, women in midlife often find themselves feeling stuck, not because they don't have options, but because they don't trust themselves to choose. Women who have spent their lives prioritizing the needs of others often reach this point in our lives in our 40s and 50s feeling deeply disconnected from our own desires. We say yes to things we don't want to do, and that's just become a reflex. Even when there's an opportunity to step into something we really want, even when that opportunity presents itself, we often hesitate because prioritizing ourselves feels foreign and uncomfortable. A woman who has spent her life suppressing her intuition may one day wake up and think, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what I like, what I want, or even what I should do next. I feel like I've lost myself. So believe me when I say, you have not lost yourself. You've simply been conditioned to ignore yourself. Your intuition never left. It's just waiting for you to start listening again. See, self-doubt, it's one of the biggest barriers standing between those of us in our 40s and 50s and confidence, clarity, and the freedom that we crave. It's that quiet voice in the back of our mind that whispers, you're not ready yet. What if you fail? You're too old to start over. Or you don't know enough to make this decision. By the time we reach middle age, we've accumulated decades of internalized self-doubt. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's been reinforced over the years by cultural conditioning, personal setbacks, and a deep-rooted fear of getting it wrong. For many women, self-doubt manifests in three pretty powerful ways. First, perfectionism, the belief that you must have everything figured out before you can take action. This one I am guilty of. Next, fear of failure, the hesitation to try new things because you're afraid of making mistakes. And there's emotional burnout, which I think all of us have experienced. This is really the exhaustion that comes from constantly putting yourself last. Each of these plays a different role in keeping us stuck, disconnected, and unsure of our next step. So let's break down each one: perfectionism, fear of failure, and emotional burnout, and let's explore how we can dismantle these things for good. Now, one of my favorite quotes is, "Now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good." And I think it's from John Steinbeck's novel, The Grapes of Wrath. Now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. See, perfectionism is the ultimate trap because it convinces you that you can't move forward until everything is flawless. Before you write the book, you need to take more classes. Before you start the business, you need to have every detail planned. Before you make a big life change, you need to know there's zero risk. Because by midlife, many of us have spent years being caretakers and problem solvers, and let's face it, the emotional anchors for those around us. And we've learned that mistakes are just not an option, especially in high-pressure careers, relationships, and even parenting. And from an early age, many of us were taught that being good, especially being good girls, meant being perfect. Get good grades, be the perfect mother, look put together at all times, never let anyone see you struggle. And as a result, many of us avoid risks and stay in our comfort zone even when we deeply desire change. Because the internal belief is, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. Or if I fail, it means I'm not good enough. Or the worst one yet, if I make a mistake, people will judge me. See, perfectionism doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. It keeps you from trying, from growing, and embracing new possibilities. And the irony is that you don't actually need perfection. You need momentum. So if you want to break free from perfectionism, first you got to shift from perfect to progress. And instead of asking, how can I make this perfect? Ask, what's one step I can take today? Because action builds confidence, not waiting. Next, lower the stakes. I mean, every single decision isn't life or death. Some choices can be adjusted along the way. Treat new experiences like an experiment, not a final exam. And finally, celebrate imperfect action. Recognize that messy progress is still progress. And the most successful people in the world didn't start perfectly. They just started. Next, fear of failure. See, if perfectionism is about not starting, fear of failure is about not taking risks. And many women in our 40s and 50s feel stuck in familiar, safe patterns, even when those patterns are unfulfilling. We tell ourselves things like, I can't quit my job, I might not find another one. Or, I can't start this business, what if it fails? Or, I can't change careers, what if I don't succeed? See, past failures still feel like wounds. If a past relationship, career, or endeavor didn't work out, you might feel like you're doomed to repeat it. And we've been conditioned to avoid mistakes. I mean, women are often taught to be risk averse, while men are encouraged to take chances. And the fear of judgment is real. Women worry that if they fail, people will say, see, shouldn't have tried. But failure, it's not a dead end, it's a lesson. Every single failure contains feedback, wisdom, and resilience. So in order to overcome your fear of failure, redefine it. Instead of seeing failure as proof that you're not good enough, reframe it as proof that you're growing. I mean, the biggest risk isn't failing, it's really never trying. And then take micro risks. You don't have to leap off a cliff. Just take one small step slightly outside your comfort zone. For example, apply for a job that excites you, even if you don't meet 100% of the qualifications. Or start a creative project without worrying if it's good enough. Or you could say yes to an opportunity before you feel 100% ready. Then ask, What's the worst that could happen? Often, our fear of failure is worse than the actual outcome. Even if things don't go as planned, you will survive, you will adapt, and most importantly, you'll learn. See, many of us, we're not just mentally stuck, we've become emotionally and physically drained. Emotional burnout has become the silent epidemic among midlife women. And it comes from years of putting others first, from decades of suppressing our own needs, and a lifetime of being the strong one. And the result is that by the time we reach our 40s or 50s, many women feel completely burned out. And the signs of emotional burnout could be exhaustion that isn't solved by sleep, feeling resentful towards family, work, or just life itself, no longer knowing what brings you joy, or a deep sense of depletion, mentally, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. But there's a reason why burnout feels even heavier in midlife. And it's partly because hormonal changes make these energy dips even worse. And those years of self-sacrifice really take a toll. And often we feel like we should have had it all figured out by now. But the truth is, you cannot build confidence, you can't trust your intuition, or take risks when you're running on empty. So in order to recover from this emotional burnout, start saying no. Every yes to something you don't want is a no to yourself. So start protecting your time, your energy, and your well-being. Next, prioritize your needs without the guilt. Rest is not laziness. Joy is not frivolous. You deserve to feel nourished, not depleted. And then reconnect with what brings you joy. I mean, what did you love to do before life got so busy? What excites or inspires you? And then just give yourself permission to play, explore, and even rest. See, the key to overcoming self-doubt isn't becoming perfect. It's learning to trust yourself again. Perfectionism tells you to wait, so start before you're ready. Fear of failure tells you to stay small, so take the risk anyway. And burnout tells you to keep going no matter what, so give yourself permission to rest. This time in our lives isn't a time to shrink. It's a time to step into the fullest, boldest, most confident version of ourselves. And the good news is, just as we were conditioned to silence our intuition, we can also recondition ourselves to listen to it again. The voice of our inner knowing is still there underneath the layers of self-doubt and external expectations. See, women don't lose their intuition. It simply gets buried under years of conditioning. But intuition is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. See, midlife is really our opportunity to stop looking outside for answers and start turning inward, to trust that deep wisdom within you that's really been there all along. The question is, are you ready to start listening? For many women, the biggest challenge isn't knowing what they want, it's trusting themselves enough to act on it. And by this point in life, you, my dear, have accumulated years of wisdom, resilience, and experience. But if you've spent most of your time prioritizing everybody else, silencing your needs, and second-guessing your instincts, it can feel nearly impossible to hear your inner voice again. But here's the truth. Your intuition has never left you. It's always been there, whispering to you in the quiet moments, nudging you toward the things that make you feel alive, warning you when something feels off. The problem is that society has conditioned women to override their intuition in favor of logic, approval, and external validation. But now, here is an invitation. A chance to reconnect with that deep inner wisdom and to start trusting yourself without hesitation. And this isn't about finding something new. It's about coming back home to yourself. So, how do you start listening again? How do you rebuild self-trust when you've spent decades doubting your own instincts? Well, one of the biggest reasons women feel disconnected from our intuition is really that our minds are just too noisy to hear it. Between work and family responsibilities and those endless to-do lists and the pressure of daily life, there's very little stillness. And intuition, it doesn't scream. It whispers. So rebuilding intuition really happens through mindfulness. If you're constantly rushing and doubting and overanalyzing, you're going to miss those intuitive signals. See, practicing mindfulness doesn't have to mean sitting cross-legged on a meditation cushion for an hour every morning. I mean, with my knees, I can't even do that. It simply means creating moments of stillness where you can tune into yourself. So what could that look like? Well, you could try the what do I need exercise. You might even want to try this every day. Each morning, before you look at your phone or jump into your daily responsibilities, just sit quietly for 3 to 5 minutes. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what do I need today? What is my body asking for? What would feel nourishing to my soul today? And instead of overthinking or dismissing the first thought that comes up, just accept it without judgment and then follow through, whether it's more rest, more movement, more connection, or setting a boundary. Over time, this practice trains your mind to check in with itself before looking outward for answers. And if you're a journaler like I am, these are some great questions to just jot down in your journal and come back to every morning or afternoon whenever you have a minute to spare. Next is listening to your body, because body language is really the language of intuition. Your body is always communicating with you. And if you've been listening to my podcast and you have listened to some of the episodes about intuitive eating, you get it. Your body is always communicating with you. The question is, are you paying attention? Because intuition often speaks through physical sensation. When something isn't right, you might feel a deep sense of, if something feels right, you might feel a deep sense of calm, right? You might feel an openness in your chest or in the heart chakra. You might get that gut feeling that says, yes, this is it. When something feels wrong, you might experience the opposite. You might feel a tightness in your chest or even in your stomach. You might feel a sense of dread or unease, or maybe you just get a gut feeling that tells you to walk away. The problem is that most of us have been trained to ignore these signals. We override them with logic, rationalization, and those beautiful expectations that society places on us. You say yes to commitments that feel wrong because you don't want to disappoint others. You stay in situations that drain you because you've been taught that quitting is failure. You ignore your gut instincts about people, opportunities, whatever, because you don't have proof that something is off. So start listening to your body again. Practice decision-making with body awareness. So the next time you're faced with a decision, instead of overanalyzing it, close your eyes and notice your body's response. Do you feel expansion or restriction? Do you feel excitement or unease? Trust that first instinct and then track how your body reacts to people or places or situations. Throughout your day, pay attention to how you physically feel in different situations. Notice which people or environments or activities make you feel light, energized, aligned, or the ones that make you feel drained or tense or uneasy. And then honor what your body is asking for. If you feel exhausted, rest without the guilt. If your body craves movement, give it that, whatever that movement might be. If you feel drawn to a particular path or idea, trust that pull. See, your intuition lives in your body, and when you learn to listen, you'll never need to second guess yourself again. And as I mentioned earlier, I love to journal, and journaling really is the power of writing to reconnect you with that inner voice or that inner wisdom. Because sometimes your intuition, we talked about it being buried under self-doubt and external noise. Journaling really helps you clear that clutter so you can hear yourself again. I'd like to introduce you to the intuition dialogue exercise. So again, if you're a journaler, give this a try. You can always come back to this part in the podcast and do it again on your own. It's a simple but powerful practice. You start by writing a question at the top of a blank page. Now make this something that you're struggling with. For example, should I take this new opportunity? Or what do I need most right now? Or how can I reconnect with my higher self, my intuition or higher wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And then without overthinking, just start writing whatever comes to your mind. No editing, just write as if you're having a conversation with your higher self. And then notice those first thoughts that come up. Your intuitive voice is usually calm, direct, and reassuring. A fear-based voice is usually loud, anxious, and full of criticisms or what-ifs. And trust what you write, because believe me, your first instinct is often the right one. Now, if you want more detailed exercises like this, you can download my free ebook, Activate Your Intuition. The link will be in the show notes. See, building self-trust is really the key to confidence. Once you start hearing your intuition again, the next step is to trust it. Many of us are great at sensing what we need, but then we immediately doubt ourselves. We might feel an intuitive nudge, but then we overanalyze it. Or we hear our inner wisdom or our higher self speak, but we seek external validation before we act on that. See, rebuilding self-trust is all about taking small, consistent actions to prove to yourself that your intuition is reliable. So how do we do this? Well, start small. Start real small. Make a decision today without overthinking or asking for outside input. Any decision. It can be as simple as choosing what to eat, what to wear, or how to spend your afternoon. And then use affirmations to help rewire that self-doubt, because your brain believes what you tell it. So you might repeat to yourself, I trust myself, or my intuition is wise, or what about, I'm capable of making good decisions. And then celebrate those wins. Every time you follow your intuition and it works out, acknowledge it. This builds proof that your inner knowing is trustworthy. So here's my challenge for you. Take one aligned step this week. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's making a decision without second guessing yourself. Maybe it's simply just saying, I am enough as I am. Whatever it is, do it today. You see, midlife, our 30s and 50s, well, maybe 30s midlife for you. I hope not. For those of us 40 and over, midlife isn't a crisis. It's an awakening. It's the moment you realize that everything you've been searching for has been inside you all along. The question is, are you ready to listen? Now, don't forget to download my free ebook, Activate Your Intuition, 3 Steps to Reclaiming Inner Wisdom. The link will be in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, share it on Instagram and tag me at Holly Toscanini. I'd love to hear how you're reconnecting with your intuition. The time to live fully is right now. Remember, you are wise, you are powerful, and you already know what to do. Until next time, bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to How to Lose the Weight. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you found value in this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It really helps the show reach more women like you who are ready to step into their power. For more insights and inspiration, follow me on Instagram at Holly Toscanini or visit hollytoscanini.com. Until next time, remember, stop waiting and start living.